Stuck in the soul-crushing monotony of Beefy Boy Burger, Bryan Ross is dying a slow death by grease and routine until a mysterious motorcycle gunman roars into town, trading boredom for a terrifying shot of adrenaline. Greetings, schools, and welcome to a dive into horror television. Tonight we explore It's a Miserable Life from Freddy's Nightmares. We open to Bryan as he rots inside his dad's burger place in Springwood. He's stuck working an overnight shift since someone called out. He makes a phone call to Karen, who is planning on picking him up. Instead, she plans to come down and hang out with him to help pass the time. Someone's at the drive-thru speaker revving their engine. The stranger says, "We're coming for you, Bryan." He looks outside and the man at the drive-thru is a creepy man he's never seen before. Luckily for Bryan's sanity, he notices Karen pull up, and back at the window, the motorcycle dude shoots a gun at him. Karen comes inside the store, and he was passed out. That next morning, Karen drives Bryan home. She tells him she'll always love him and plants a big kiss on him. When he gets out of the car, he notices a group of people holding burgers, chanting, "Springwood needs you, Bryan." That's odd. So he goes inside and pours a glass of water. He notices a drop of blood fell in it. He double checks it and it's gone. On the radio, there's a report of a drive-by shooting in Springwood this morning. When he turns on the light, all of his possessions are boxed up. He hears the motorcycle dude from before saying, "Give me everything you've got." His mom is in the kitchen and she's a real whack job. She acts like a classic sitcom mom. She's making cookies and tosses the bowl to the ground so she can feel his head. Then she plants a fat kiss on her son's lips. Freaky. He winds up back on the night shift. Karen and some guy pull up to the drive-thru window and they're making out. He slips and falls and he's back at his home. There are letters of acceptance from colleges, but no one will let him see them. His dad fries up the letters and then they turn into burgers. They remind him that he is Beefy Boy. Then they start singing a jingle. Bryan's own version of hell is no place I'd like to be. Bryan calls Karen, but before they can talk, he hears his parents whining. His dad is trying to kill himself with his head in the oven, and his mom is in the fridge. He does what he can to help them out, but it's no use. They go up in flames. He wakes up and he's the motorcycle guy now. Even Karen catches a bullet. We're at the hospital now as Karen gets wheeled in. Her wounds aren't too bad. There's hope for her. The doctors put her to sleep, and when she wakes up, the surgeons are kissing and eating hamburgers and french fries. They're doing brain surgery on her. The man who shot her is in the room pointing his gun at her. She wakes up and meets with her doctor. She doesn't want to be there. The doctor doesn't care. He jabs her with an insanely large syringe and passes back out. The doctor and nurse start smooching. When she wakes up again, there's a nurse getting handsy with herself in the corner of the room. This hospital is a freak show. She goes outside into the hallway and finds a clipboard that says "Hopeless Basket Case. Body donated for parts." Signed by one of the doctors. She looks under the blanket and there's a rat. She hears Bryan's voice and he says they could be like Romeo and Juliet. They both died, so that's not a good way to go. She cuts back to her bed where she's hardly awake. The doctor and nurse sew her mouth shut. She wakes up again and luckily her mouth isn't like that anymore. The nurse puts her back in bed and leaves a note at the foot of her bed. It's the doctor's note from before that says to use this body for spare parts. She looks inside of her room and she finds Bryan with a bullet between his eyes. The killer pulls her away and takes her to the limb bank. I hope that doesn't exist in real life. She runs away down a hall and at the end, there's the killer on his motorcycle with his gun. She wakes up in bed and the doctor tells her that Bryan was pronounced dead on arrival. Her parents are there to see her, but both of her parents died in an accident years ago. They're in the doorway reaching out to her. The doctors tell her she's safe, but it's no use. She's terrified. This episode is a harrowing exploration of the paralysis of potential and the nightmare of a life unlived. Bryan is trapped in a cyclical hell, defined by his own stagnation and regret. His environment, the fast food job, the oppressive sitcom parody of his parents, the boxed up belongings, is a physical manifestation of a life stalled in adolescent limbo. The gunman on the motorcycle represents the violent intrusion of his own squandered future, a specter of consequence hunting him down for failing to move forward. The recurring motif of college acceptance letters being destroyed or transformed into hamburgers underscores the central horror horror, the terror of watching your dreams and potential be literally consumed by a mundane, dead-end reality. Bryan's fate is to become the very agent of his own destruction, suggesting that a life defined by fear and inaction ultimately turns you into your own executioner. Simultaneously, the story depicts a parallel nightmare of medical and institutional violation as an allegory for total powerlessness. Karen's hospital ordeal transforms a place of healing into a house of grotesque horror, where doctors and nurses are perverse, unprofessional, and predatory. Her body is treated as disposable property, marked for spare parts, experimented on, and silenced. This represents a profound loss of bodily autonomy and agency, magnifying the vulnerability of being physically injured and at the mercy of a system that is corrupt at its core. The constant cycle of waking into new, worse horrors reflect the inescapable trap of trauma, where there is no discernible line between nightmare and a reality that has become equally monstrous. The limb bank is the ultimate symbol of this dehumanization, reducing a person to a collection of harvestable components. Ultimately, the episode weaves these threads into a broader theme of shared trauma and the inescapability of a cursed reality. Bryan and Karen are linked not just by romance, but by a communal descent into a reality that has shed all pretense of order or safety. The borders between their nightmares bleed together. Bryan's failure summons violence that physically wounds Karen, and her hospital hell is populated by visions of his death. The final moments confirm there is no waking up, no return to a normal world. The appearance of Karen's long-dead parents at her bedside doesn't offer comfort, but a chilling indication that even death provides no release from this fractured existence. The true horror is the absence of an outside, the realization that the nightmare is the only reality left. A perpetual state of fear where every authority figure is a predator, every safe space is a trap, and the only certainty is that you are not safe, you are not sane, and you are not getting out. The episode repeatedly stages moments where ideology insists everything is fine, while material reality screams otherwise. This dissonance produces hallucination-like effects. Objects vanish, people shift roles, time loops. Reality feels unreal because ideology no longer coheres with lived conditions. The horror is the breakdown of ideological consistency under economic pressure. Dialectically, Bryan's labor produces value for the system while stripping value from his own life. He exists only as a function. When the biker threatens him with "give me everything you've got," the demand mirrors capital's relation to labor, total extraction with no reciprocity. The chant "Springwood needs you, Bryan" is ideological coercion masquerading as community. The town doesn't need Bryan as a person, it needs his labor power. Karen initially appears as a mediating force between Bryan and despair, but dialectically, she functions as a false resolution. Love is presented as a privatized solution to structural misery, which cannot hold. When Karen kisses Bryan and reassures him, it doesn't alter his conditions. Her eventual victimization reveals the failure of romantic ideology to protect against material violence. The Romeo and Juliet reference is crucial. Romantic tragedy is exposed as aestheticized death, not resistance. Love here does not negate alienation, it is absorbed by it. The hospital represents the final stage of abstraction. Bodies detach from personhood entirely. Karen's designation as hopeless basket case and donated for parts reveals how capitalism treats surplus life, those no longer useful to production. Medical authority claims neutrality, but its logic mirrors industrial efficiency. Consent disappears. Care is replaced by classification. The eroticized indifference of doctors underscores that power no longer needs justification when it is total. This is not a failure of medicine, but its alignment with capitalist rationality. Freddy's presence is minimal because he is unnecessary. The system generates horror on its own. Dreams, loops, and grotesque imagery are not supernatural intrusions, but expressions of material contradiction reaching psychic limits. The episode suggests that madness is not an individual defect, but a rational response to irrational conditions. The miserable life is not Bryan's personal failure, it is structurally produced. The director of this one was Tom McLaughlin, who is known for writing Friday the 13th, Jason Lives, as well as directing Sometimes They Come Back. The writers were Michael DeLuca and Paul Rosselli. Michael is known for producing The Social Network, Moneyball, and Brothers. Paul is known for writing this episode and an episode of Helltown. Bryan was played by John Cameron Mitchell, who is known for Hedwig and The Angry Itch and Short Bus. Karen was played by Laura Park Lincoln, who is in Friday the 13th, The New Blood, Knots Landing, and Ghost Party. Overall, this episode was a stinker. I'll rate it a 6 out of 10 for the series Freddy's Nightmares. It was a hazy time that probably sounded better on paper than it did on film. Not all episodes can be winners, and that's fine. Which episode of the show do you want me to cover next? Let me know down below, and remember to be well and stay spooky.